Hello, and welcome to me live streaming again. This wasn't planned. I signed off the chapters I wanted to sign off today, which was 39 and 40. However, when I read chapter 41, it became apparent that almost nothing needed doing to it. I needed to add a scene, which I'll talk about when I get as far as reading it out. But other than that, it's pretty much as written. There's the odd word change, but it didn't need an awful lot doing to it, which is brilliant. I'm so pleased about that. Because, yeah, when you remember that this chapter wasn't actually supposed to exist, it wasn't part of my plan. I originally planned to end it basically where I ended it, and then to have a long jump ahead in time to after the colony is sort of up and running a little bit, and then do the stuff that I do in the next two chapters. But none of this was meant to be here. None of this was in my original plan. And if you go back to podcast 32 from this year, from the 7th of February 2025, it's called New York, More Work. And the reason it's called that is because literally during the podcast, I realised that to actually do justice to the stuff I want to do at the end of this book, I'm going to have to do more than just write an epilogue. So yes, it's almost like me going, oh, I'm going to have to do more, aren't I? But it was absolutely the right decision, I think. And yeah. So I don't know if anybody's watching. If you are, hello. If you're not, but if you're not going to know, are you? I'm just going to test my chat as normal. And as normal recently, I have put some lyrics in there. Oh, I didn't put them all in. Never mind. But that's a lyric, and that proves that that's working. So yeah. So this is chapter 41. It's called After. It's the first chapter of the shortest part of the book, which is only 3 chapters. It's called Part 5, Idrisil. And I might as well, hang on, let's just get my screen onto the control panel on here. Oh, forgot to say, as normal, if you want to interact with me, obviously you can do it through the normal text channel through Twitch. However, there are other ways. If you scan that QR code, you will see that there are many, many social media platforms that I'm on. And I've also got a Discord server. And if you would like to interact with me, then you can go to the bottom of my you can join the Discord server. That's effectively an invitation to do that. You can join the Discord server, and at the bottom is a section called Voice Channels. And there is one called Twitch Streams Live, which is now on. So there you go, up and running, ready for you to come in and insult me, congratulate me, whatever you want to do. So this is a 22-page chapter. It's another long one. I definitely won't be doing another one. I say definitely. It depends. I mean, I'm going to read chapter 42 later. I can't imagine me coming back tonight to do more. But hey, who knows? So let's minimise this. Maximise that. I've only got 3 chapters left to edit, and after this I'll probably only have 2. That's amazing. And then let's go to that view. There we go. Let's minimise that. So, Part 5, Idrisil. Chapter 41, After. Being in hibernation felt very different from every other interface that Ronnie had previously experienced. The spirit of the tree that encompassed her was not an entity that she'd ever directly interfaced with before. However, it seemed to be telling her to wait. As time went by, how much time it was impossible to tell, the spirit slowly faded from the edges of her consciousness. It seemed as though she was on her own for quite a long time before another familiar presence filled her. "I congratulate you, daughter," said a voice. She immediately recognised the tone and rhythm of it. "Idrisil," said Ronnie, "I don't know what you're congratulating me for. I failed. All of your ambassadors failed. The majority of the human race is dying." Time passes at a different rate here, says Idrisil carefully. Oh, no inverted commas there. "None of your race survive on the surface. They have been gone for many weeks." Had she had working tear ducts, Ronnie knew that hearing this would have made her cry. Everyone she'd ever known. This is a change I made, and then so I thought, no, I can't do it. Almost everyone she'd ever known was now gone. "Then why are you congratulating me?" If they had been human, Ronnie would have assumed that subsequent pause might have been Idrisil selecting her next words exceedingly carefully. "We did not expect you to succeed," they said eventually. What? I don't understand. When we decided to appeal directly to your people a couple of centuries ago, we made assumptions about your rate of technological progress. You already know that we intervened once before and wiped out an intelligent race. Sorry, I've got a door out swinging in the wind. I just need to put something in place to stop it doing that because it's annoying. There we go. You already know that we intervened once before and wiped out an intelligent race. They did not get as far as you have technologically, but we saw the potential in them for mass industry and pollution. The poisoning of our air, it scared us, so we destroyed them and carried the burden of that guilt for billions of years. When your kind started down the same path, most of us remembered that remorse, and we were determined not to do the same to your species. At the first signs of serious technological progression, we implemented a plan designed to guide you. We created what you know as Arbor Associates, and to put Aurora into the world, some that you came to know as Ursula, Carruthers and Lord Farnborough. Unfortunately, we failed to predict the exponential rise in your technological development or the aggressive way in which you exploited the natural resources of our Earth. When we created you, Ronnie, we believed that it was already too late to influence your behaviour. You were too reliant on fossil fuels and machines that needed power generated by burning things. But we felt we had to try. You were caught napping, effectively, asked Ronnie. Yes, replied Idrisil somberly. Once we realised that our scheme was doomed to fail before it even started, our community split into two distinct ideologies. One that believed we should leave it as long as possible before we sterilised you from the planet, in the hope that, with our guidance, you could understand the severity of your mistakes, and the other that thought the ecological disaster was already irreversible, and we should therefore remove you immediately. The Idrisil faction and the Ragnarok faction, said Ronnie. Our world is so close to the tipping point where all life, including our own, will cease, that the Ragnarok faction almost won the argument, said Idrisil. It was the people that you surrounded yourself with that convinced Simon of Ragnarok that a small number of you should be given the chance to live. Hang on. Especially, I'm going to put your friend Marianne. That is why I'm congratulating you, daughter. You and your compatriots convinced Steinwolf of the value of who or what you are, that as a species your emotions and feelings are as substantial and authentic as our own. How many humans survive? Asked Ronnie. There are almost 6,000 from this island, stated Idrisil. 2,000 in Wales, the rest here. And across the globe, over 200 such groups, some smaller, some not, achieved hibernation. As many groups were destroyed before they could be saved. So there are under 1 million survivors. Less than 0.25% of your species still live. But the fact that any survived at all is because of you, Vero Andy. Ronnie would have nodded her head had her perception told her that she had one. Can you tell me which of my friends survived, she asked. Some were injured moments before their hibernation. I don't know how badly. I cannot, replied Idrisil. But you will discover this for yourself soon, child. You will not remain conscious across the years our world is without a breathable atmosphere. We will help you to sleep. Is there anything else you wish to ask before I initiate your hibernation? Ronnie paused. Any words would be inadequate, but she felt short to say something. Not a question. I wanted to thank you for attempting to save us. I did save you, I suppose. Ronnie paused. So what happens now? To me, I mean. You will sleep, then you will wake. You and the other survivors will exist in harmony with the planet. Idrisil had just made a statement rather than a request. Well, I just made a statement rather than made a request. I think works slightly better there. Hang on. Rather than making a request. Will I be part of that monitoring process? Asked Ronnie. Am I still your ambassador? That role is complete, replied Idrisil. You are free. And if I need advice from you, it will be readily available, but not in the way that you are used to, said Idrisil. Now sleep, my daughter. You are precious to us, but from now on you must live a life not shaped directly by us. You must care for your daughter, as I cared for you. I'm not going to rush into motherhood, replied Ronnie with a chuckle. Indeed? Asked Idrisil. What I can see happening within your body suggests otherwise. I'm sorry? One will soon become two, stated Idrisil. Now sleep. What? Cried Ronnie. That can't be. The memory of being with Private Vickers in the forest after he'd saved her from Barrera, when they'd forgotten the world around them from an intimacy they both desperately needed in that instant, washed over her as consciousness slipped away. Adrian, she muttered. as sleep caught up with her. Adrian. She's conscious. The female voice that said those words was vaguely familiar to Ronnie, but she did not immediately recognise it. Good, replied a male voice. She knew that one. It was Oliver Shaw. She opened her eyes to see that she was lying on a stretcher, a blanket covering her modesty. Shaw looked down at her and grinned. You're back with us, Ronnie. You did it. Sorry, we did it. You did it. Ronnie exhaled and looked around her. She was in the forest close to the tree that had saved her. It did not look so healthy now. Its surface was a dull grey, as were the trunks of the 5 or 6 smaller trees that immediately surrounded it. She looked up and saw a woman of medium height, thin, with short dark hair. She immediately recognised her as Dr. Kendra Briley. She smiled and reached up a hand to grab Kendra's. You made it. Kendra smiled. We'll go back to the village, check you over and get you some food. Some people that you know will want to see you. I want to see them too, said Ronnie. Does that include Adrian Vickers? Yes. Ronnie frowned and let go of Kendra's hand. How did you know? His name was the first thing you said when you woke. He's busy in the fields, but he will come and see you soon. We gave him the afternoon off. Kendra grinned. He can't wait. I see, said Ronnie, as she remembered what she had to tell him. I see, said Ronnie, and as she remembered what she had to tell him, her chest tightened a little. Feeling slightly sick, she closed her eyes as 2 people started to carry her stretcher through the forest. Ronnie woke up later. A nurse informed her that she'd been asleep for a few hours. When she woke, the light outside had that... No, that's badly worded. When her hibernation had ended, is a better way of putting that. When her hibernation, the light outside had that pre-dawn sluggish dimness that promised brightness to come. She could see through the window in a room. That the sun was now high in the sky. Her stomach made noises, and she realised that she was very hungry. She knew that a hibernation tree had sacrificed itself to save her. That was the key difference between interfacing and hibernating. One took a few weeks and relied on the human having enough energy stored within to stay alive, albeit with a reduced metabolism. The other involved the tree pushing every nutrient it could source into their guests to keep them alive at its own expense. She realised that she had no idea how long she'd been away for. She was in a small room with a single bed with crisp white sheets. The walls were painted white, and the curtains hung at the window were light blue. There was nothing else in the room, no ornaments, no medical equipment, just a small table next to her, with a wooden chair next to that. On the table was a bell, with a little note saying, "Please ring me as soon as you're awake." Roddy nodded to herself and, feeling slightly self-conscious, picked up the bell and rang it. A minute or so later, the door opened with a soft creak, and Dr. Kendra Briley walked in. Ronnie smiled. "I've just realised. Your face. The tree completely fixed your burns." Kendra smiled and sat in the chair. "Yes. Although the army set fire to the tree, I was not hurt any more than I already had been, and the trees nearby helped to feed my tree in order to keep me alive." I'm going to say sustain instead of feed. But that's a minor. Rodney suddenly remembered the tree next to Kendra's had been occupied by a friend, one who had been badly hurt in the course of events. "What about Marianne? Are they okay?" Kendra nodded. "They live. Adrian says they're quieter than they used to be, but they healed totally. No signs of gunshot wounds, no internal damage." "Adrian has been revived too?" Ronnie's hand moved unconsciously down to her belly. "Yes, he was one of the first. Oliver Shaw used him as part of the personnel acquisition team. As you know, the intention was to have everyone hibernate up here in Cairngorms, but the speed with which things happened prevented that. Adrian, myself, and Shaw, and a few others. Adrian, myself, Shaw. I'm going to lose the and. And a few others collected the key people from around the country who needed to set all of this up." She gestured around her. "How long did that take?" Ronnie asked. "We've been out for over a year," replied Kendra. "You've been asleep for about 3 years. It's June, by the way." Ronnie smiled. "Is Adrian okay?" "He's brilliant," said Kendra with a grin. "And he can't wait to see you. He's ridiculously excited." Ronnie smiled. "Good. That's good." Her smile faded a little. She wondered how he would react when she told him what Idrisil had told her. "You can go and see Marianne later," said Kendra. "We told him you were being revived today." "Is Mackenzie back with us yet?" asked Ronnie. Kendra shook her head. "Mackenzie's part of the problem for Marianne. His tree rejoined the network, so we know that his body healed okay, thanks to information from Mr. Carruthers. But the trees are keeping him in hibernation because they're worried about his mind. They can't find it to communicate with him, and they're unsure what will happen when they release him. Possibly nothing, and we don't have the resources to give him intensive care." Ronnie nodded sadly. "And Marianne knows this?" Kendra nodded. I see, she exhaled. Yes, I guess that's why they're not okay. She paused. You mentioned Carruthers. What about Ursula and Oakley? Kendra had been about to stand, but settled back down in the chair. Ursula is fine, completely healed. She's really looking forward to seeing you, she said. And Gordon? Kendra shook her head. I'm sorry, Ronnie. I had a feeling I would have to be the one to tell you. Gordon Oakley didn't make it. Ronnie felt a chill rush over her body. What do you mean? He was already badly injured when he carried you to your tree. We discovered his remains next to it. He didn't get any further, I'm afraid. Kendra took her hand and squeezed it. I'm sorry. Ronnie blinked away tears. He'd been dead for over 3 years, but she'd seen him what felt like just a few hours ago. Kendra released her hand. I'm sorry to talk shop after giving you such awful news, but you've just been released from hibernation. You must be hungry. Ronnie blinked tearfully. I am. But before I eat, can I see Adrian? He's on his way. Would you like a selection food brought here whilst you wait? Ronnie nodded and noticed the box of tissues on the table next to the bell. She wiped her eyes and blew her nose as Kendra left the room. There was a knock on the door. I'm going to say 10 minutes later. I'm just going to add 10 minutes later. Now this moment is added. So this was added today. This wasn't in the original plan. Oh, balls. Sorry, it's quite windy and things are blowing all over the place. Just need to find somewhere to put the complete pages where they're not going to end up flying through the air. Oh, hang on. How about there? There we go. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Ronnie had dried her eyes, but was still feeling tearful. She looked up. She looked up. Let's lose that to the door. Don't need to repeat the door. She looked up. Come in, she said. The door opened, and a short man came in. He was wheeling a hotel-type room service trolley laden with food. I have this for you, he said. Bring it in, said Ronnie wearily. The man was in nurse's garb and had his hair tied up in a bun. He wheeled the trolley over to the bed and used his foot to hit a brake on one of the wheels. Is there anything else I can get for you? He asked. Ronnie looked at him. There was something familiar about his voice, but she could not place it. Who are you? She asked. I can draw the curtains if you like, miss. Shall I do that? I know your voice, said Ronnie, without answering his question. The man inclined his head. You do, miss. I am here because of you. You must have intervened on my behalf. Ronnie lowered herself down from the bed, breathing heavily. She walked over to the nurse and examined his face. His skin was a light brown colour, and as she looked into his eyes, he broke into a smile. Shava, she said as she exhaled before throwing her arms around him. Oh my, you made it. How? He put his arms around her and turned the embrace. I don't know. I was hurt in the explosion. Adrian and I managed to kill 3 of the 4 soldiers before I passed out. The next thing I knew, I was here. Ronnie sobbed into his shoulder. Adrian made it too, she told him. Shava smiled. I know. I've been here for almost a year now. I was, like Adrian, one of the first released. I wanted to thank you for saving me. I didn't know that I had, cried Ronnie. We were surrounded by Skulldugg that last day. I had a conversation with Gordon saying that I desperately wished there was a way to help you. Her voice cracked as she said his name. But I didn't realise that I had. That must have been enough, said Shava, patting her gently on the back. I think I'm the only person that is neither Yakunda or Opus to survive. Ronnie squeezed him. You were always Yakunda in my eyes, Vishal. Thank you for everything you did. She hugged him and continued to cry. The door opened and Kendra walked in. She smiled, so all that is new. She tapped Shava on the shoulder. Vish, sweetheart, you need to give her time to eat. Shava stepped away from Ronnie and she gaped. Are you two? Yes, said Kendra with a smile. Now let him be, he's got lots to do. Ronnie nodded and grabbed his hand. Then grabbed his hand again. I'm just going to say grabbed his hand again. So he was supposed to die. So there you go, I can be nice to my characters. Thank you, she said through her tears. If anyone now deserves to be here, it's you. He smiled, nodded, then left the room with Kendra, closing the door behind them. Ronnie sat on the bed. Her post-hibernation body was craving nutrition. She emptied the place that had been placed before her and almost rang the bell to ask for some more, at which point she realised it would be easier if she went to the food rather than expecting it to be brought to her. The moment she stood, there was a knock on the door. She froze, looked at it, and in a slightly bewildered state said nothing. The door opened, and a figure stepped in. It was Adrian Vickers. His hair was much longer than the army buzz cut that she was used to, and it had filled out thanks to all the physical work he'd been doing. He still had his Yakunda glow. Ronnie stared at him and then burst into tears. Adrian dashed forwards and took in her arms. He hugged her and kissed her forehead. It's okay, Ronnie. It's all going to be okay. He led her over to the bed and sat her down, lowering himself beside her. I can't believe Gordon died, said Ronnie slowly between sobs. Adrian nodded gravely. No. He saved me, said Ronnie, as Adrian placed a comforting arm around his shoulder. He carried me to my tree, and then didn't have the strength to get to his own. Adrian nodded. I found him, he said softly. I recognised the clothing as soon as I saw him. He squeezed her shoulders. Ronnie looked up at him, but the intensity of his gaze was too much for her, and she looked down again. She stayed quiet for a few moments as he patted her back. There's something I need to tell you, she said slowly. She'd spent so much of the last hour thinking about what she would say and worrying about how he would react. Adrian nodded. Okay, he said. She looked back up at him and grabbed his hand. Idrisil told me something when I was hibernating. Something I didn't expect. She looked away for a second, shoring up her mental defences in case his reaction was not positive, then looked directly into his eyes. I'm pregnant. There's only been you. Adrian retained the same expression for a moment, and she was aware that his hand started gripping hers more tightly. Then his face broke into a broad grin, and he flung his arms around her. She closed her eyes as they hugged, and when he opened them again, she saw that he was crying. He leaned across and kissed her mouth gently. We'll have a home near the fields, he said. I was hoping you'd want to live there with me. You want... You want that? Even with what I've just told you? Ronnie squeezed his hand and realised it was shaking. Are you okay? Adrian smiled. It would mean a lot to me if you said yes. It's been a tough year. I've been looking forward to seeing you so much. Ronnie put on a deliberately exaggerated, pondering face. There's room for 3? Adrian smiled. There is. Ronnie exhaled and nestled comfortably in his embrace. Good, she said contentedly. I can't wait. Once they'd finished talking, Adrian showed her to the dining room. There was a buffet, and for a while she forgot almost everything as she ate the food laid out for her. Adrian stayed next to her. She was in the middle of tackling an especially delectable quiche. It's all vegan stuff, by the way. When the door to the dining room opened and 2 people entered, she was so caught up with her food that she did not notice who it was until Adrian tapped her politely on the shoulder. Ronnie, she said, there are some people here to see you. Ronnie put a plate down and turned, and a smile became broader still as she saw Ursula standing next to Carruthers. She ran over to Ursula and hugged her. Ursula enjoyed the affection, smiled slightly, and returned the hug in a somewhat uptight manner, patting Ronnie on the back. I'm going to say shoulder, because I've had a lot of back patting already. When Ronnie finally let go, Ursula smiled daintily at her. It's nice to see you. It's nice to see you too, dear. I'm going to put in a 2. It feels like it should be there, even though it isn't. It's nice to see you too, dear. And I'm happy to see you as well, said Carruthers. I don't blame you if it's not mutual. Ronnie grinned wickedly and hugged him. He looked startled and moved his arms awkwardly, as though he was not quite sure what he was supposed to be doing with them. And that is directly, because in my head Peter Capaldi plays Carruthers. That's exactly what happens. It's exactly the kind of motion he does when, what was his companion in that first episode? Clara hugs him at the end of the episode, and he's sort of, oh. And she says, and he goes, I don't think I'm a hugging person. And she says, I don't think you've got the choice. Anyway. Ronnie grinned. He looked. Oh yeah, I'm sorry about what happened to you. Ronnie said to Ursula. I'm sorry for the pain. I couldn't think of another way of getting us safely out of the situation. If they thought you were dead, they wouldn't watch your body. I didn't enjoy being shot, said Ursula, a grimace taking over her lined face. It was rather painful, but I understood what you were doing. If they'd dragged me to their base of operations, as it were, that first shot would have eventually killed me, slowly and painfully. They told you about Minnie-Me? Asked Carruthers as he helped himself to a sandwich from the table. Ronnie looked confused for a moment before she realised the old man was referring to Mackenzie. Kendra told me something high level, she said. Why? His tree is back on the network. They told me that his body is fixed, but they haven't been able to interface with his mind, to talk to him. Carruthers looked serious. It could simply be that he's in shock because of everything that happened. Time passes much slower in hibernation, as you know, but it could mean there's nothing left of the lad. Carruthers shook his head angrily. Brave little bastard deserves better than that. He paused. And Marianne is fucked, he said, continuing. He continued. The not knowing is killing them. He really swears quite a lot. Adrian's been trying to spend time with him, said Ursula. Adrian shook his head. They usually push me away. They're living in a cottage at the bakery, and they seem quite amenable when the shop's open. But once it's closed, they don't talk to anyone. Ronnie looked solemn, and Ursula nodded. We've all tried... Do you know what? I think I might drop in a pronoun there. And you look... I know why. You'll see why in a minute. He's been pushing away. They live in the cottage at the bakery, and they seem quite amenable when the shop's open. Once it's closed, they don't talk to anyone. Ronnie looked solemn, and Ursula nodded. We have all tried to get through to, and I'm going to get her to say him. We have all tried to get through to him to varying degrees, they said. We're a bit worried, dear. Crothers nodded thoughtfully. Aye. No, Carruthers is going to get it right, actually. Adrian's been trying to spend time with him, said Ursula. Adrian shook his head. He's been pushing me away. Very sorry. They're living in the cottage at the bakery and they seem quite amenable when the shop's open. Once it's closed, they don't talk to anyone. Ronnie looked solemn and Ursula nodded. We've all tried to get through to him to varying degrees, Ursula. She said, we're a bit worried, dear. Crothers nodded thoughtfully. Aye, they did so much to help us get here, I'd be pissed off if they just went and offed themselves. A shocked expression crossed Ronnie's face. What, is it that bad? Ursula and Adrian shook their heads. We're not sure, said Adrian. I've been calling in every day. Sometimes they don't even open the door. Ronnie shook her head. I need to see them. Her stomach made a rumbling noise and she rolled her eyes. As soon as I finished eating, Adrian, get me Dr. Riley and check that she's okay with me going. I mean, I'm going anyway, but tried to make it sound like she has a say in the matter. Adrian smiled and was about to walk away when a look of horror crossed Ronnie's face. She rushed over to him wide-eyed and rested a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. It's going to take a while for me to get used to not ordering people about. Ronnie gave him a watery smile and shook her head. Please, would you talk to Kendra for me? She kissed his cheek and whispered sorry into his ear. Adrian winked and left the room. He's been so looking forward to seeing you, said Ursula candidly. Between you and me, I think that young man might have a little crush on you. Ronnie giggled and resumed wolfing down the contents of her tray, only stopping a few minutes later when Kendra and Adrian entered the room. Ronnie looked up at the doctor and put a plate down. So, can I go and see them? The village that they were walking through looked like almost any Highland village would have done before the trees removed the oxygen from the atmosphere. True, there are no longer any cars parked in the few properties that had driveways or indeed on the empty roads. Most of the cottages had little front gardens that had been filled with pony tunnels and vegetable patches. Some of the larger ones had both. The settlements that had been prepared for the survivors were... No, I think the polytunnels would be in the rear garden, so I'm just going to change that. That was bugging me earlier when I read it. Most of the cottages had front gardens that had been filled with vegetable patches. The settlements that had been prepared for the survivors were 3 villages close to the edge of the Cairngorm, surrounded by land that had been repurposed by people like Adrian for agricultural purposes. To date, only one of the villages had anybody living in it. Less than 800 people had been revived so far. I was one of the first, said Adrian as they crossed a road. He laughed when Ronnie looked both ways. No traffic here, love. Not even a horse and cart. I don't suppose that any horses survived, said Ronnie thoughtfully. They have a programme for that. There are lots of young ones around the country. They won't come out of hibernation for a while yet, and even when they do, there are a lot of growing up to do, and then training before they can be used as beasts of burden. Plus, there will be an extensive breeding programme. The eventual idea is to reintroduce wild horses. Ronnie raised her eyebrows. That sounds wonderful, she said as they walked. Why were you one of the first to be revived? Some of the key figures that were meant to run the revivification programme had not been able to get up here, so Oliver Shaw took over until we could revive them. He saw something he liked in me on that last day in the Arboretum and ensured that I was part of his initial team. Same with Vishal. A look of horror crossed his face. Sharvar, you do know that he made it too? Ronnie smiled and squeezed his hand. Yes, I saw him earlier. It was a bit of a shock, but I'm thrilled he's with us. Obviously that tiny little bit was added. They'd walked into a small square that's surrounded by houses that had once been shops. We went all over the country retrieving those key people. What was it like? Asked Ronnie. I hated the cities, said Adrian, pausing for a moment. Apart from plants running wild, they looked weirdly normal. Did you have to be careful? Was disease a problem? You need the living to spread disease, replied Adrian as he started to walk forward again across the square. This is the market square. You should see it on a market day. It's thriving. The next one is on Thursday. Ronnie laughed. I'm sorry, I don't even know what day it is today. Tuesday, replied Adrian. I'll show you the market the day after tomorrow. They crossed the other side and walked through an archway that led to an alley that ran between two old square brick buildings. The first people we freed were the builders, farmers and medics. Someone had cleared the bodies from the village and make sure the houses were all suitable for living in, get wells put in and start preparing the land for agricultural use. We still have plenty of food stores from before, mainly tin goods. By the end of the year we'll be fully self-sufficient in terms of food. He started walking up a slope when Ronnie looked upwards, and when Ronnie looked upwards she gasped. "That's a windmill!" Adrian giggled. "We're not getting anything past you, are we?" Ronnie stopped walking and glared at him with a glint in her eye. "It's just I was so involved in trying to make sure that none of this would be necessary." Hang on. "It's just that I was so involved in trying to make sure that none of this would be necessary. I never appreciated the scale of the backup plan. It's so quiet here." She looked up into the sky. No traffic sounds, no contrails in the sky. I hadn't thought about what it would be like. Adrian put his arms around her and hugged her. "I love it. Once they chose the date to revive you, I asked to come off the revivification team so I could be here. I'm a farmhand now. If you'd told me 5 years ago that I'd get so much pleasure out of working the land, I wouldn't have believed you." Ronnie giggled. "You'd have been about 12, she muttered into his chest. "Almost 16, actually," he replied with a laugh. "And another thing, I'm older than you now." Ronnie let go of him and pushed him back. "How'd you work that out?" "Because I was 7 months younger than you when you went into hibernation, and I've been out for 13. Ronnie rolled her eyes in mock disgust. Adrian took her hand and started to pull her up the hill towards the mill. "Is that where we're going?" she asked. "Yes," replied Adrian. "The baker is just on the other side, and that's where Marianne lives now. The miller lives down in the village, but Marianne chose to live above the bakery." Ronnie looked around. Although there was no wind today, she could imagine it would be quite isolated when a Highland gale was blowing. "Aren't they lonely?" "I think they are, yes," said Adrian sombrely. "I'm not sure they're as depressed as Crothers suggested, but they're not in a great place." Ronnie shook her head. "That's sad. They were brilliant and should take some of the credit for getting all of this off the ground." "I know," said Adrian sadly as a gust of wind blew across their path, "but they don't see it." He kissed Ronnie's forehead gently, then started walking up the hill. "Come on, I'm hoping that seeing you will help again. I'm hoping that seeing you again will help." He stopped for a moment and whispered into her ear, "Like it has with me." His smile was one of such joy that Ronnie could not resist kissing him. Eventually Adrian stepped back, grinning from ear to ear, taking her arm and guiding her up the broken stone pathway that led up the hill. The windmill looked much smaller when they got close to it than it had from the bottom of the hill. It was constructed from timber, and once they got close, they could see it was brand new. It was painted white with black lines around the doors, windows, and the edge of the sails, which gave it a cartoon-like quality. They walked around the circumference to see another new wooden structure that had been built this might need altering. They walked around the circumference to see another new wooden structure that had been built onto a stone ruin that had been there for centuries. This one was constructed from logs rather than planks. There was a new brick-built chimney at one end, rising up from the original stone, and at the other were steps leading to a second story. That featured a solitary door with a window on either side. There was smoke billowing from the chimney, to which Adrian pointed. "They've usually finished baking by now," he said, glancing at the old... No, there's no reference to that. There doesn't need to be smoke billowing from the chimney. I'm going to lose that. "They've usually finished baking by now," he said, glancing at an old-fashioned wind-up watch on his wrist. They walked to the ground level door near the chimney stack. "Do we knock?" asked Ronnie. She suddenly felt nervous. "I usually walk straight in," admitted Adrian, "but seeing you will surprise them. We did tell them that today was the day you were due to be revived, but most of the time Marianne can't tell you what day of the week it is. Despite what me, Crothers and Ursula have said to them several times, they refuse to have a day off." Ronnie nodded and rapped sharply on the door. There was no response for about 10 seconds, and she was about to knock again when the door opened. Ronnie almost didn't recognise the person that flung themselves at her. "Ronnie." Marianne's arms were wrapped around her friend, so tight that Ronnie felt the breath squeezed out of her. "I didn't realise it was today. I should have come down. I'm sorry." Ronnie could feel from the jumpy rhythm of Marianne's breathing that her friend was crying. Finally they stood back, and Ronnie saw Marianne properly for the first time. It was all she could do not to gasp. They looked nothing like the person she remembered. They looked nothing like the person she remembered. The face looked sad and seemed to have more lines on it. They were wearing overalls, but the most astonishing thing was their hair. It had been cut short, and there was a couple of days' worth of stubble on their cheeks. "It's great to see you, Marianne," said Ronnie. As she watched, Marianne's face clouded over. And they nodded. I'm Mark now. Ronnie frowned. But you always said it doesn't matter what I always said, replied Marianne curtly. I've had 5 months of being the enigma of the community, the one with a mental illness, the person nobody knows how to refer to. I'm not Marianne anymore. You really want me to call you Mark? Questioned Ronnie. She could see their expression falter momentarily before they nodded resolutely. Yes, I can't be the person I was. That person died when they felt the bullets slamming into their body. Marianne looked down at their feet. The tree made a mistake with my hibernation. I didn't sleep. I felt the agony of the bullets in my body. A single tear dripped down the cheek, which they wiped angrily away with a finger. I imagine it's what someone feels like when they wake during surgery, only it lasted for weeks. Ronnie turned to Adrian and looked at him. He understood immediately and nodded. I'll be in the mill, he said, turning and walking away. Marianne's eyes followed him as he strode around the building, and their expressions softened. He's lovely, they said quietly. Are you and him? Ronnie smiled. Yes, I think so. You're all he's bloody talked about, said Marianne, then nodded towards the inside of the bakery. Come on, you can do some kneading with me. Ronnie followed Marianne into the bakery. At the far end of the room was a large wood-fired oven built into the existing stonework. It was large enough to bake 30 loaves at a time. There was a stack of clean loaf tins in the corner. In the centre of the room was a large table covered in flour. It had a huge lump of dough on it. Marianne used a large, sharp knife to bisect it and beckoned to Ronnie. Just do as I do, they said. They washed their hands in a sink in the corner and then started folding and pressing the pliable mass. Ronnie did the same, moving from the sink to the opposite side of the table. I hope you don't mind me asking, but why do you look so different? She asked. People didn't like what I was. I mean, they weren't nasty to my face, but the comments I used to hear when they thought I wasn't listening. If I'd walked past you in the street, I don't think I'd have recognised you. Marianne shook her head. I don't recognise me. I've taken down the mirror in the flat upstairs. I can't bear to look at it. You were gorgeous, said Ronnie slowly, as she stopped kneading for a moment. We are in a world that needs to reproduce, said Marianne with a sigh, and the old me doesn't fit into that. I don't want to be a father. He almost choked on the word. So I'm just the oddball that bakes the bread. They looked up at Ronnie. They were not crying, but their eyes were red. And Gordon, I can't believe he's gone. I've worked with that man every day for almost 5 years. I know he was a bit of a crass dinosaur sometimes, but he would do anything for anyone. You're here because he made sure you survived, at the cost of his own life. Marianne almost spat out the last word, then looked down. Sorry, I don't blame you, I really don't. I'm pleased to see you as much as I'm pleased about anything anymore, but I miss Gordon so much. I understand. I was shocked when Kendra told me. Ronnie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She knew what she wanted to say, but she was not sure how it would be received. Everyone's concerned about you, she said eventually. Even Carruthers. He's worried you might... Ronnie caught herself and shook her head. Marianne stopped kneading. Might what? I didn't mean to say that, sorry. You've bloody started now, snapped Marianne. Ronnie took a deep breath. He thinks she might... She couldn't bring herself to say the words, but the harsh expression on Marianne's face told her that they understood what she'd implied. They looked directly into Ronnie's eyes, and the harshness of their expression spoke volumes. What have I got to live for? Me! Blurted out Ronnie. Adrian, Ursula, Carruthers, and Mackenzie. Now I need to italicise the and. Mackenzie's as good as dead, said Marianne softly. I can't deal with that. We don't know anything yet, pleaded Ronnie. She wanted to say their name but was worried it would cause them another burst of anger. I need your friendship. I would have loathed Forest Lodge if you hadn't been there. You've got Adrian now. There's room in my life for more than just Adrian. I've something I need to tell you. Adrian already knows. It would have been inappropriate not to tell him first, but... Marianne's expression changed as their eyes widened. Oh my, they said slowly. You mean... Ronnie nodded, and Marianne's expression softened. I need to find another word for expression. I'll just say face. Face, that's fine. And you need someone to help you change whatever we come up to replace nappies. I need a friend, said Ronnie. We used to be so close. Marianne sighed. People change or they die. I've changed. I can't lose anyone else. I can't afford to. They looked away. If you don't have links to people, it can't hurt. If I don't have links to people, it can't hurt to lose them. I don't need anyone anymore. You definitely do, said Ronnie. I'm moving in with Adrian. Come for dinner. Does it still work like that? It's not communal meals or anything? When we started, we were late together at the Oakley, said Marianne. But no, now people do their own thing. It's still a place to eat if people don't want to cook. I used to go a couple of times a week. The Oakley? Oliver Shaw renamed the village hall the Oakley Hall. It's used for communal eating, meetings, they even show movies. There you go. Oliver Shaw renamed the village hall to the Oakley Hall. It's used for communal eating, meetings. They even show movies. That's lovely, said Ronnie, her voice catching. Look, I want you to come over and see us this evening. I'm not sure I can. I have to get up early to bake. We can eat early. Oh, paper's blowing around. Marianne shook their head. I'll think about it, they said. Please, implored Ronnie. There was a silence between them, punctuated by the sounds of the dough being kneaded. Eventually, Ronnie spoke. Marianne, Mark, I'm still going to call you Marianne. Of course you bloody are. There was a difficult silence. I didn't say congratulations, Marianne said after a while, glancing up again. I probably sound like I'm being sarcastic, but I'm pleased for you. Adrian is lovely. He's checked in on me every day when he's not been out on revivification expositions. He thinks you're special. I'm special, all right. Ronnie stopped kneading and walked round to the other side of the table. Marianne eyed them apprehensively. What do you want? Ronnie grabbed their arm. I love you, and I need you to be part of this weird new life. Neither of them had noticed Adrian enter the room. Adrian loves you too. Does he? Asked Marianne sulkily. You know I do, said Adrian softly. His voice made Marianne jump. I've been trying to reach out to you since you were revived, and I'm never going to give up. He walked over to where Ronnie was still gripping Marianne's arm and hugged them both. He leaned down and kissed Ronnie gently, then pulled Marianne to him. It's time you remembered who you are. He kissed their cheek. Marianne said nothing but started to cry silently. I've asked them to come to dinner at 4. Is that okay? Of course, smiled Adrian. I'm always asking them. And they never come, asked Ronnie. Nope. That's rude, said Ronnie. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to badge you every day to come and see us, to the point where I'm going to piss you off. There's only one way to stop me before I start, and that's to come to dinner, this afternoon, 4 o'clock. Marianne closed their eyes. I'll think about it, they said morosely. That's not a yes, snapped Ronnie, and it's not no either, interjected Adrian, which is better than I've ever managed. Marianne frowned, then looked at them. I've been getting panic attacks. They're horrible. I can't promise I'll be there, but if I don't get one, I'll consider it. Best offer? Asked Ronnie with a smile. Marianne gave a curt nod and continued kneading. I don't know about with a smile. Just going to lose the with a smile. Just do that. There we go. Adrian and Ronnie walked down the hill together, hand in hand, heading back towards the village. I hope they'll be okay, said Ronnie. When do they stop caring about their appearance? After a couple of months, replied Adrian. Everyone loves their baking, but none of them understood what or who they are. A lot of people made comments about the fact that they won't have kids and they need to decide if they're male or female. Marianne overheard and retreated into themselves. I can't remember the last time they did anything social. So if they come for dinner, it will be a huge step. What are we going to have? Asked Ronnie. Sorry to push this onto you. I don't even know if you can cook. We're on a mainly vegetarian diet for now. Mainly vegan, that should say. Holding open the small wooden gate at the bottom of the slope that served as an entrance into the village. We have eggs, although the hens were quite traumatised by the hibernation process and most of them only just started laying regularly. We will be allowed to eat small animals like rabbits and birds in a few years when we are sure the numbers are sustainable. I was thinking of an aubergine hot pot. Marianne taught me that a few months ago. We have to make sure they're going to be okay, said Ronnie. There are a couple of people walking through the market square now, and one of them greeted Adrian as he walked through. We will, replied Adrian. Carruthers and Ursula will help us too. They live together in the same cottage, by the way. Not together, but together, if you see what I mean. What are you going to do for the rest of the day? Asked Ronnie as Adrian led them down the street that she did not recall from their walk out to the mill. I've been given the afternoon off so I can spend it with you. I'm going to take you home and we can start on dinner. I have a dawn start in the fields tomorrow, so I need an early night. Dr. Bride is going to come by and check up on you at 3. They continued walking. Is it far? Ronnie asked. Why? Are you okay? Yes, giggled Ronnie. I'm just curious, that's all. I'm curious, that's all. I think it would be just curious. I'm just curious, that's all. It's about a mile, said Adrian. Out of the village there's a farmhouse with some outbuildings that have been turned into homes for the farm workers. I'm in a converted stable. Ronnie raised her eyebrows. Are you going to carry me across the threshold? She asked earnestly. Adrian stopped walking and looked down at her. Would you like me to? Ronnie burst into a fit of giggles, then held her hand up to his face, staring into his eyes. I'd love you to, she said after a few moments. He grinned awkwardly, then took her hand again and led her towards the outskirts of the village and the fields. See, nice things can happen to my characters. Adrian's home was a simple affair. In a former life it had been a pair of adjacent stables. The stable doors had been replaced with regular wooden ones, and the old building had been converted into a house that consisted of 2 rooms. One was a living area with a kitchen, the other was a bedroom with a shower room apportioned off in the corner. There was a large stove next to the brick wall that divided the 2 main rooms, which Adrian explained also heated the water for both the kitchen and shower. I'm going to put wood-fired. Stove next to the brick wall that divided the 2 main rooms, which Adrian explained also heated the water for both the kitchen and the shower. There was a water collection tank on the roof, as well as some solar panels that were used to power LED lights in both rooms. Adrian explained the power would regularly run out, but a vast quantity of candles had been stored in a large underground warehouse of the Alpha site, and he often used those. He also explained that one of the crops they were farming would be used to create oil suitable for making candle wax, and on the other side of the village was a large new bee farm for beeswax and honey. Ronnie was in constant wonder at the amount of things that had been planned for this community. Every other sentence seemed to be Adrian explaining how there was something in place to make this or that sustainable. By the time Kendra visited, she was slightly overwhelmed, and she dozed after the visit for the 45 minutes before Marianne was due to arrive. Adrian shook her head just after 4. Ronnie yawned and stretched. Are they here yet? Adrian shook his head, and just as Ronnie sat up, there was a knock at the door. She leapt energetically out of bed and through the main room, where Adrian had set out the large table with candles, bread utensils and a large crock pot. Ronnie dashed to the door, then turned back to Adrian. Do you mind if I answer it? She asked excitedly. Adrian gestured to the door with a grin. Of course not. Ronnie opened the door to reveal Marianne standing on the threshold. They looked as though they were trying to hide on the porch, so Ronnie walked out and put her arms around them. I'm so pleased you came, she enthused, as she dragged Marianne into the living room. She turned to Adrian, who was standing by the bedroom door. Look, it's Marianne. Marianne would not meet their eyes. I made the effort because it's you. Ronnie looked at her friend, taking the fact that Marianne had shaved. The short hair was odd, and they had tried to hide their attire under a light summer coat, but when they removed it, Ronnie could not help smiling. They were dressed very like they had at Forest Lodge, gender enigmatic with a hint of femininity. You're back, she said softly. Maybe, said Marianne. It's still not easy here. They had not noticed Adrian approach from the table, and he surprised them with a bear hug. They smiled despite themselves, and the 3 sat down at the table, catching up and eating the meal that Adrian had prepared for them. Aww. That evening, after Ursula and Carruthers had eaten the dinner that she had made, and after he had grudgingly washed up, they sat in their living room in the flickering candlelight. There was a wireless radio in the corner of the room. Before the hibernation, someone had collected an enormous archive of music and radio plays, so the village had its own radio station. Carruthers was bored by the old Radio 4 drama that was currently playing, but was looking forward to the opera that was due on next. Ursula leaned across from her armchair to the one that Carruthers was sitting in. Can I make more tea? I thought you were listening to this shite, was his terse response. I was, she said, but it isn't that engaging. I wish you'd said earlier, moaned Carruthers. I've only just decided, dear, said Ursula, standing up and switching the set off. Carruthers would only moan if they ran out of power during his Puccini, which was not on for another half an hour. She walked over to the kitchen, and Carruthers followed. Did you have your meeting with Mr. Shaw? He eventually asked. Have you been wanting to ask that since this afternoon? She asked him as she added hot water to the pot. Aye, was the grumpy response. Well, yes, I did, said Ursula. And you're going to go through with it? Ursula put the spoon down, replaced the lid on the pot, and put a plain blue tea cosy over the top. Yes, dear, I rather think that I am. When? Are you going to miss me, Mr. Carruthers? Of course I bloody will, he said, not knowing where to look. So, when? Not yet, dear, not for a few months. Idris will indicate to me precisely when it is time. Then we will go down to my old home in Sherwood. I will take... I'm going to put I, because she's not assuming that he's coming. Then I will go down to my old home in Sherwood. I will take Ronnie with me, and I think she will want to bring Adrian and Marianne. Carruthers looked slightly upset. Can I come? Do you want to, dear? Carruthers' old eyes were slightly red as he answered. Of course I do. Ursula smiled. Then you may. Well, thank goodness for common sense, said Carruthers. His voice wobbled slightly as he started to pace up and down the small kitchen, attempting to hide his eyes from her. After a few moments he stopped. Do you have to do this? There's so much you can still contribute. I'm tired, said Ursula, and I've done everything I was meant to. Aye, so have I, but I'm not just giving up. Ursula smiled sadly. Is that what you think, dear? I was born in 1674. Charles II was on the throne when I was a little girl. I saw 15 British monarchs in my lifetime, and all 55 prime ministers. Yeah, muttered Carruthers. I'm only 50 or so years behind you, you know. I know, said Ursula with a tiny smile, and you will probably feel the same in 5 decades. Bollocks, I plan to live forever, he snapped. He took the tea tray and carried it to the living room, setting it down on the table between their armchairs. He sat and watched Ursula as she did the same, as she took her seat. It would be better. I'm sure if you just interface, you'll feel better. When she shook her head, he lowered his eyes. I'll miss you, he said simply. You'll miss my baking. No, you daft old cow. I'll miss you. Ursula gave a sad, reflective smile. Thank you, Mr. Carruthers. This is between you and me, by the way. You may not tell anybody, especially not Ronnie. I'll communicate my intentions to her when I'm ready. She took a dainty sip of her tea, then set the cup back down on the saucer. So although it's the end, there's still something happening. Obviously, you can probably guess that it sounds like she's decided not to continue living, but then, like we just said, she was born in 16 something or other. Right, very happy with that. As I said, that's a weird chapter because none of that was in my plan, my breakdown at all. Not a single word of it. It was all meant to. Basically, it was all meant to continue in the next bit. So the only person that was supposed to come out of hibernation in the story, in that part of the story, was Mackenzie. What am I looking for? Oh yeah. But I just thought it was a shame. I would have missed Ronnie's reaction when she found out that Gordon had died. I missed her telling Adrian that she was pregnant. Because what was going to happen? It was just going to be a fait accompli. They were going to, the next chapter was going to end with him waking up, living with her, and she's pregnant. And I don't think I'd decided that necessarily that pregnancy was from their liaison earlier in the book, but obviously now I have decided that. Right, let's have a look. So let's see. What score is this giving me before I do anything it recommends? 93, yeah, I'll do. That's fine. The walls are painted white and the curtains hanging at the window were light blue. That's fine. Now, I think she would say me, even though it's grammatically incorrect. So, me, Agent Shaw. Oh, okay. Me, Agent Shaw. No, that's wrong. staying as it is. Lovely. What score is it giving me after all that? 98. I mean, that's mental, but okay, I'll have that. So again, download. Let's pop that there. Minimize that. Open that. Eventually. Oh, no. That's better. Right, and there we go. So that was something I wasn't expecting to get done today. And that is part 5. So that's terrific. I'm very pleased with that. Right then, so Empress of the Trees, let me just drag chapter 41 to the done bit. Wow. So I shall now record the podcast. Might as well whilst I'm here. I'll drag the laptop closer to myself. Might as well have that screen for a second. Whilst I do that, let me have a look. Let's just make sure that's... Let me see what you can see. That's better. Right. Hello, it's Friday the 4th of July 2024. God. It would help if I had the microphone attached. Or in computer terms, anyway. Hello. Today is Friday the 4th of July 2025. It's American Independence Day. And you are listening to the Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And I have had a tremendously good day today. I did sleep a lot better last night. I managed to go to bed. I went to bed when I said I was going to, basically, just after I recorded the podcast. I had a really good night's sleep. I woke up properly refreshed. I wasn't refreshed. I didn't have new skin. Refreshed at about 6 o'clock, and suddenly realised that I didn't have anything in the house that I wanted to eat for breakfast. In fact, I didn't have yoghurt or fruit or anything that I like. So I knew Tesco had already opened. So I went shopping. I actually went and did a bit of a top-up shop at Eoldi supermarket, and I was back by like 10 to 7. And yeah, I then put stuff in the fridge and was ready to go. What else did I do? It wasn't straight away. I can't remember what I did in the meantime. Oh no, I listened to an audio drama. I listened to an audio drama that I wanted to listen to, and then I think it was just before 9 o'clock, I did a live stream, and during that live stream I signed off chapters 39 and 40 of Empress of the Trees. This included a minor rewrite, I think I might have mentioned before, but I can't remember if I have on the podcast. I've definitely said it on my live stream, so apologies if I did this on the podcast yesterday as well. But there's a character called Vishal Sharvar, who is one of the non-professional, but an ex-soldier that was working for Arbor Associates, that was sent up to the Cairngorms to help support Ronnie free Simewolf from the tree, or from the tree that was off the network. And I felt really bad because I really liked the character. I'd warmed to him really quickly, and he was basically one of the few people left towards the end that wasn't going to live. He wasn't a designated survivor, so he was doing all the things he was doing. Unlike Ronnie and Carruthers and Oakley and all the others knew that they would survive, he didn't know that. He basically thought he was going to die. And in the original version, he gets quite badly injured in an explosion that's a trap left by a couple of the remaining soldiers. And Ronnie basically does what he's asked her to do, which is shoots him because he can't recover. They haven't got the medical equipment and stuff. And it just felt too harsh. So in the version of chapter 40 that I eventually signed off, Adrian says there was an explosion and he died, and we don't see him die on page, as it were, and that then left me the opportunity to do what I had planned to do in chapter 41. Now, I didn't plan to sign off chapter 41 today. I planned to get to 40 and leave it. However, loads of other things happened today, so I got a CD arrived via the post, which is the very first audio drama starring Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor and Mandip Gill as Yaz. And I was absolutely determined to listen to that today. In fact, what I normally do with these audio releases is I rip the CD onto my computer, stick them on my phone, and then either listen to them in the car or went out for a walk. But no, I was absolutely determined to listen to this one properly firsthand through the CD, so I did, and it wasn't the greatest story of all, but it was wonderful. There's definitely chemistry between the two leads in it, and it was fun to listen to. There's a couple of moments where I thought, yeah, they have got Jodie's Doctor absolutely perfect, so I was very pleased with that. Really enjoyed that. And I listened to some other bits and pieces. I can't watch any Doc Martin. I have found a Region 2 copy of the one Doc Martin episode that I had an Australian DVD of. It was only like £5 on Amazon Marketplace. So I've got that coming. It should arrive tomorrow. So I shall continue watching Doc Martin. So yeah, there wasn't much else I could do. Oh, I cut the grass. I needed to cut the grass, and I've been putting it off for ages. Luckily, it hasn't grown very much because of the heat in the last few weeks, but it hasn't been touched since before I went to Singapore, so a while ago, at least like 2 and a bit weeks. But I don't think it'll be touched for a while before that. So I was determined to do that. So the grass is cut, and then I sort of read chapter 41 in preparation to sign it off tomorrow. And chapter 41 is an interesting chapter because it wasn't in my original chapter plan. In my original chapter plan, it ended with the last person going into hibernation at the end of chapter 40, which I signed off earlier today. And then it was going to jump not only a couple of years ahead until people were out of hibernation, it was going to basically jump to a point down the line where Ronnie had already set up home with Adrian. She already knew that Gordon had died to save her and all that kind of stuff. And it was during a podcast that I did, and I've got the date here somewhere. It was during this podcast that I did on the 7th of February 2025, show number 32 from this year, entitled New York More Work, that I realised that I needed to do more. So what was going to be originally just a single epilogue ended up becoming, well, I wasn't sure how long it would be at the time, but it ended up becoming 3 additional chapters. And the first one, which is the one I've signed off today, chapter 41, which is titled After, basically from Ronnie's point of view is set immediately after chapter 40. So it's her waking up from her hibernation. It's her finding out that Gordon died, which I thought was such an important moment. It was wrong to not have it in the book, for it to skip ahead to after that had happened. So she finds out what happens when Gordon dies. She is reintroduced to Adrian and has to tell him that she's pregnant. Idrisil, when she's hibernating, says, "Oh, you're pregnant, by the way," or words to that effect. And she knows that, in the timescales, it could only have been Adrian. So there's her telling him, there's the kind of them properly getting together. And the bit I added was, her finding out that Vishal Sharval, the guy that should have died, survived. Nobody's quite sure how. I'm not quite sure how, but they hypothesised that basically he was around them when a lot of the schooled tree spirits were around, and they must have heard her saying to Oakley, "I wish there was something more we could do for him. This guy has been wonderful." Someone somewhere listened to what she said, and he was taken in after he was shot. Schooled took him into the trees, and he survived like all the other survivors did, hibernating, and was repaired as it happened. So, yeah, I loved reading that chapter. It also reintroduced Marianne and showed a lot about their mental health issues that they've had since everything's happened. Yeah, it was just a really fun chapter to write, and it also added a little bit of jeopardy at the very end, because Ursula, who is 300 plus years old, has decided that she's done her bit now, and it's time for her to not be there anymore. And it's not going to happen straight away. She sort of said, "I want to die in my cottage in Sherwood," and I'd already planned, obviously, in the last chapter to be largely set down that neck of the woods. So yeah, so it's all set up ready for the last 2 chapters. I'm really enjoying it. I'm definitely going to read some more tonight. I am engaged tomorrow. I have things to do, but depending on how much work the last 2 chapters need, there is a tiny chance I will get it signed off tomorrow. More likely Sunday though. But hey, listen, tomorrow I might have, well, it's sort of signed off. So once I've signed off that draft, I will then get it printed I will use Kindle Direct Publishing to send it to me as a physical book, which means buggering about formatting it and everything. And I will read it again, because with Still Life, what I found was that there was a couple of things that I hadn't spotted even when I read it on paper that I did spot when it was physically printed in a book. So there will be a few amendments made, but it is largely there, just 2 chapters to sign off. Anyway, I've gone massively over my allotted time. Apologies. That's the end of the podcast for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Right. I'm still streaming, aren't I? Almost forgot that. Hello. Right, let me just... I'm going to... just finish this off. And then... Could even be. Oh, well, let's find out. Weirdly, when I do this bit of editing, when I like the audio to cut in, the speaking bit to cut in at a very specific point. Hello, and I can never see it on this screen, whereas when I edit it on my phone, I can see it exactly. So let me just do that again. Hello, today is. Hello, today. No, that's slightly so it's there. Hello. That's it, that's exactly the right spot. And now end credits. That's the end of the podcast for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. You have been listening to the... Perfect. Right. So, I wasn't even in that screen at all. That was fascinating for you. Right, so let's export that as an MP3. It is the 4th today. Of course it is. 040725. Save... Yep, and I shall just drag that into the podcast. Oh, wrong folder. Just drag it into there. There we go. That's me done for today. As I explained when I recorded the podcast, I will definitely be back at some point tomorrow, because if I can, I would like to get this signed off tomorrow. I'm definitely going to read through the last 2 chapters tonight. I probably won't come back on here and do this tonight, but you never know. 3 sessions, I don't think I will. Anyway, I don't know if many people are watching. Oh, there are a couple of you watching. Nobody said hello, but thank you for watching. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Like, subscribe, and get your notifications. Then you'll know when I'm coming back. Take care. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.